The last of our local candidate forum series. This is for Nevada Irrigation District, Divisions 3 and 5. This is put on by the League of Women Voters of Western Nevada County. We are a nonpartisan organization and dedicated to voter education. You can expect informative and civil discourse tonight, as you can in all of our forums. My name is Janice Bedayn. I'm the president of the League of Women Voters, and I am so pleased to welcome these candidates and thank them very much for participating in our forum tonight, and thank the audience members as well for viewing. Questions were submitted earlier. They were required by 3 p.m. yesterday, and we are not going to be having questions during the forum itself. You all actually, for the listening audience and viewing audience, you are muted and your camera is off, so you can do whatever you want to do while you're enjoying all of this. I want to thank also our media representatives tonight, Paul Emery from KVMR, Liz Keller from the Union, Paul Haas from KNCO, and Pascal Fußhaller from UBNet. I want a special shout out to Pascal because she really is the wizard behind the technology that is allowing us to bring this to you virtually instead of from the Root Center where we normally do this. So very big thank you to Pascal of UBNet. The forum is being recorded, and it will be posted tomorrow on the UBNet YouTube channel as well as the League of Women Voters website. There'll be a link to it. Editor rebroadcast is subject to prior authorization by the League of Women Voters, and any other video of this forum made without our consent is prohibited. So I want to cut to the chase because I really want to get to our candidates very soon. I just want to let everybody know that our website every single day is getting filled up with more voter resources. And I'm going to say this, I'm going to say the website out loud, www.lwvwnc.org. It's also going to come up on my little logo here. But on our website, you're going to be able to link to videos of all of our forums that we have done: Board of Education, Grass Valley City Council, Nevada City Council, and NID. You're going to be able to see, after Wednesday, the League of Women Voters did a fascinating interview with Greg Diaz and Natalie Adonis, the Registrar of Voters and Assistant Registrar of Voters, about the security of our elections in Nevada County. It's an excellent interview. It's about an hour long. You'll learn everything you want to know about elections in Nevada County. That's going to be available probably around on Wednesday. We have Voters Edge is online and ready to go right now, and Voters Edge is a resource for you to be able to put your address into the website and find your ballot with absolutely everything that is going to be arriving on your ballot is going to be on that website. And there's lots of information about everything there, and the League is working with local candidates for them to submit their own information on that website so that it will be an easy place to go and evaluate all of the candidates at one place, providing that they all do it. So encourage your candidates to do that. Also links to voter registration and anything. If you need to change your voter registration for any reason, or you have somebody that you want to register to vote or something of that sort, we have links to all of that sort of information as well. We're also going to have videos on the 28th of September, individual unbiased videos explaining each ballot measure and the pros and cons of each ballot measure. So those are going to be individual videos. You'll be able to go to our site, link on to whichever ballot measure you're interested in, and get about a 5-minute presentation on that. So without further ado, just a reminder, now is the time to make sure that your registration is up to date, your kids are registered, your neighbors are registered, families registered, voter registration right now, and get that done right up until about October 19th. You can go until the 3rd, but don't do that. That's not wise. Do it by the 19th of October. On the 5th of October, right around the 5th, the ballots are going to be sent out. Once you get them, fill out your ballot, get it in early. That's what everybody is being encouraged to do. So make sure you do that. It's our responsibility and our right, and I'm appreciative that there are so many of you who are engaged in the process right now. And this is quite an election. So without further ado, I am going to turn it over to Mary Jane Hunegart. Mary Jane is a longtime member of the League of Women Voters, and she is a longtime moderator for us as well. And Mary Jane, I turn the evening over to you. I'm going to disappear.
Okay, thank you, Jan. Good evening. You're watching the Candidates Forum for the Nevada Irrigation District's 5-member Board of Directors, Divisions 3 and 5. This forum is sponsored by the Citizen Education arm of the League of Women Voters of Western Nevada County. Like Jan said, I am proud to be a League member, and I thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you, Jan, for organizing these forums. They're fantastic. And I'll echo Jan's thanks to Pascal and Ubinet for providing our tech infrastructure this evening. We have 4 candidates with us. For Division 3, we welcome candidates Karen Hull and incumbent Scott Miller. For Division 5, we welcome Rich Johansen and John Norton. In addition to the written questions we collected from our voters, candidates will have the opportunity to respond to questions from our media panel. From Ubinet, we have Pascal Fuselier. From the Union, Liz Keller. From KNCO, we have Paul Haas. From KVMR, we have Paul Emery. Candidates, you will have 2 minutes apiece for opening statements, going by division and in alphabetical order. Answers to questions will be up to 1.5 minutes apiece, and we will rotate which division and candidates answer first. I'll keep track. The candidate will have the floor until their time is up. No rebuttals this evening. I'll call for the last question about 7:10, and we will adjourn at or before 7:30. We're granting 3 minutes for closing statements this evening, and we hope that this extra time makes up for rebuttals not being a part of the format. I will be timing this evening. Candidates, please keep my screen in view because I'll be holding up this card when you have 15 seconds left to speak. I'll interrupt you if you're still talking at time's up, but please go ahead and finish your sentence. Just don't make it a run-on or a compound, please. Thank you for your attention and your readiness to listen and learn. Now it's time to get rolling. Our first candidate to give opening statements will be Karen Hull. Karen, you have 2 minutes. Or I'm sorry, Ms. Hull, you have 2 minutes.
Many thanks to the League of Women Voters for hosting this debate and to everyone who is participating online. My name is Karen Hull. I'm a 15-year NID customer, and I'm deeply troubled by what I see at NID. The district is a $90 million a year operation, and they project losing $6 million this year. The 5-year budget forecast a loss of $13 million, and this is after raising rates 34%. In 2013, we had a $40 million reserve in our water fund. Today, we have just $6 million. These examples illustrate the problems, and there are many. The incumbent strategy of spend, spend, spend without considering the consequences has put us in this situation, and it cannot continue. The fiscal issues in NID have been apparent to me, a non-board member, for years, and yet nothing has been done about these issues. When elected, I will do the hard work to correct these situations. I have an MBA. I worked at UC Davis for 25 years, where I served in executive roles overseeing large, complex organizations that spanned the entire campus. Resolving complex issues like this are not easy, but I have the experience doing just this. I have the vision, business expertise, and education to best serve the ratepayers of Nevada Irrigation District Division 3.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Dr. Scott Miller. Dr. Miller, you have 2 minutes.
Okay, well, thank you, League of Women's Voters, and thank you for providing an audience. It's a pleasure to speak about NID, and to those of you that are taking your time to listen. I hope this forum all be heard clearly. As your incumbent NID Division 3 Director, I'm proud of the many things that I have accomplished, protecting our water and keeping our local water local. I'm fighting to keep our water away from the state's Delta tunnels. Jerry Brown and now Gavin Newsom want to take the water and put it in the tunnels, which takes it to LA. I'm advocating to use the water here, not lose it. Completing Centennial Reservoir would perfect and protect our water rights, keeping the water here. So on accomplishments, I brought $6.4 million in state grants to clean the mercury out of Lake Combi. A darn cool project, to say the least, and being used as a model throughout the foothills to clean up mining legacy of mercury. I brought $50 million in infrastructure improvements to our Division 3 area. This includes over 200 new fire hydrants to strengthen fire protection. Our 7-mile reservoir would do that as well. My policies have allowed over 400 new customers to hook into treated water. The lines that connect Alta Sierra to Brewer Road and up here on Table Meadow as well, several neighborhoods, to East Hacienda and then LOP. Most of these homeowners were struggling with failing wells. And by listening to their needs, I was able to modify and create policies to help them. I'm an optimist. I believe in grandchildren for my 2 boys. By completing Centennial Reservoir between Combi and Rollins, we will be securing our grandchildren's water future. I ask for your vote on November 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will hear opening statements from Rich Johansen. Mr. Johansen, you have 2 minutes.
Well, thank you for everybody who's participating tonight. I'm a 4th generation California farmer, born and raised in Northern California, deep roots to Nevada County. Great-grandfather came here in 1854. I'm a vet. I'm also served in the Peace Corps from 72 to 1974. I have a agricultural economics and business management degree from UC Davis, and I've been running my own businesses for several decades. That has given me a insight on how businesses and organizations should run and do it financially responsible. My county experience, I'm currently the planning commissioner and vice chair of the commission. For about 18 years ago, I got onto the Agricultural Advisory Commission. I chaired that commission for quite a while. I've been on the Land Trust, Citizens Advisory Group, Ag Working Group, and have donated a lot of hundreds of hours of time to forming ordinances and shaping policy at the county level. That has given me some lessons that, one, you need to be transparent, you need to be accessible, and you need to be collaborative. And I would be all of those when I'm elected as director for NID. I'd like to take just a little bit of time and give a shout out to my wife, Mila, who wrote a book about her grandmother, who helped found the League of Women Voters with Carrie Chapman Catt back in 1920. And the book just came out. It's a firsthand narrative of what they went through. And she was a lobbyist in DC for women's rights, and also spoke with Carrie Chapman Catt to get the 19th Amendment ratified. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, we will hear opening statements from John Norton. Mr. Norton, you have 2 minutes.
Unmute yourself, John.
Sorry about that. Anyway, thank you very much for the opportunity to introduce myself. I'm John Norton, and I'm a candidate for the seat on Nevada Irrigation District Division 5. Division 5 encompasses Western Grass Valley, Rough and Ready, Penn Valley, and Lake Wildwood. I am deeply concerned about our irrigation district, and I hope that you will find my background and expertise a good fit for the challenges at NID. NID has been neglecting its aging infrastructure, such as its water treatment plants. They have been relying on endless rate increases and spending their reserves to balance the budget. I've always had a passion for protecting water resources and public service. That's why I enjoyed 28 years with the State Water Board protecting California's water resources. I am also During that time, I worked hard to solve water resource problems, and my most successful tool for solving problems was collaboration. After retiring, I've continued to enjoy working to protect our watersheds in Nevada County. I'm a member of the Lake Wildwood Lake Committee. I've been on the board of directors with Sierra Streams Institute. I was a member of the Nevada County Sanitation Agency's Advisory Committee. And in 2008, I was appointed as an interim director at NID. My goals to get NID back on track are: one, to make sure that the aging infrastructure, such as the treatment plants, canals, and pipelines, have top priority. Two, I want to control rate increases. And three, I want to restore NID's financial strength and reserves. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you. To get us started on the questions portion of the forum, we will begin with a media question. Candidates, you will have 1.5 minutes apiece to answer, and I will call on each of you at your turn. Pascal from UBNet, please get us started.
All right, let's get started. Candidates, in your opinion, what is NID's greatest weakness? And if you have a solution for it, enlighten us.
Thank you. Dr. Miller, you'll go first on this one.
Could you repeat the question? Our greatest weakness?
Yes, what is NID's greatest weakness? And if you have a solution, do share it with us.
Well, it's the climate is insulting us, and we've lost, we have these brutal summers and mild winters, which are lovely, get a lot done around the property, but we literally have lost half of our snowpack most of the years. So that is the equivalent of all of Rawlins Lake's functional capacity. So the biggest threat is the climate change and the loss of water through the loss of the snowpack, our largest reservoir. My solution is to complete. I've been working on Centennial Reservoir for 6 years. I'd like to complete it. It will secure our grandchildren's water future and all of our water security. You'll notice these fires over in Orville and up in Paradise and up in Berry Creek, they're above the reservoir. We live below this proposed reservoir. It is a 7-mile stretch that would be literally a 7-mile fire break. So our biggest threat is the change with the climate, and we need to adapt. I've gone to plenty of aqua conferences. I always went to the global climate change discussions, and we're not to huddle in our caves and fear it. You have to spend money to address, adapt, and this would be it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hull, you're next.
I think our biggest challenge is in the area of finance. As I mentioned in my opening comments, we're projected to lose, in the order of $13 million in the next 5 years, and that's with a 34% rate increase. The Centennial Dam is expected to cost in excess of $1 billion when you consider the debt financing. This equates to $25 million per year in additional debt service, and NID's budget is only $90 million. And the impact of this is that, I would also say that the likelihood of getting external funding for this project is close to nil. Their state has already determined that they won't provide funding, and there are no federal infrastructure bills pending at this time. So anybody who tells you otherwise is maybe got a different view of the federal budget right now. In any case, the impact to ratepayers, if we don't get control of the finances, is in increasing rates. So from my point of view, the solution is we've got to get control of the expenses. And there are many ways that we can do that, but we have to first look at the expense side. We can't simply look at rate increases as a way to solve our current problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Norton, you're next.
I agree with Ms. Hull that I think NID's finances is the biggest weakness at this time. I think it's fixable. NID's current spending exceeds income. That's why they are spending reserves to balance the budget. This is unsustainable behavior. In order to rebuild reserves and control rate increases, I will advocate for first, hire a general manager with strong fiscal management skills. NID, the board, will have the opportunity to hire a new general manager this coming year, and this is a real opportunity. Second, I would focus dollars on maintenance of critical infrastructure. I would postpone non-essential projects, and I would also renegotiate existing debt for lower interest and payments. Also, we should review facilities, land, and equipment that could be leased or sold for income. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Johansen.
The financial aspects it's doable, that's fixable. What I see the biggest weakness, maybe two things. One, NID is doing a lot of great work in the community, but not getting recognition for it. But the second weakness is there's a lot of competition for our water, whether it's from the Department of Water Resources, whether it's from the environmental demands, or whether it's through the state mandates for preparing for drought contingencies, or whether it is also climate change. Climate change going forward, you got to read the water supply analysis technical manual, and in it it's scary. We basically will live in perpetual drought if a lot of this goes through and comes as forecast. The priorities: humans, livestock, perennial crops, annual crops. The rest of people, you kind of do without your water when we get into that kind of, drastic drought conditions. So my thing is we fight hard to keep our water rights. We increase our storage capacity. We increase conservation.
Thank you. Now we'll go to an audience question, or should I say a voter's question that was submitted. So the question is, what is your assessment of NID's current condition, including its financial health, condition of its infrastructure, and other dimensions you consider important? Mr. Johansen, you'll go first on this one.
I'm in 3 different water districts around the state. This is a very difficult district to manage. It's the second largest water district in California. It's a very expensive one, and yet the assets of this district are tremendous. So financially, I think we're going to be fine. Make some adjustments. There has been a reluctance on water rates, and so the water funds revenues have fallen behind. We're going into FERC relicensing demands. So what I would like to see especially on and this is a bigger subject, will come up later, is on the Lake Wildwood water treatment plant. We need to hook up Elizabeth George's, the regional water plant, with the Lake Wildwood water system. And by doing that, then we can take the Lake Wildwood water treatment plant offline, do a renovation that it's, an upgrade that is correct. I mean, anybody who's ever lived in a house and tried to do major renovation to the house and still live in it, it's expensive and it gets messy. And we need to hook up Elizabeth George to the Lake Wildwood water system. That will also benefit Rough Ready and Penn Valley.
Thank you. Mr. Norton.
Thank you. I already spoke about finances, so I'll talk about the aging infrastructure of NID. They have some of the oldest infrastructure around, dating from the gold rush era in some cases. It was brought up and mentioned about the Lake Wildwood treatment plant. That treatment plant is 50 years old, and it is getting long in the tooth. Anyway, at a meeting, the general manager at the time said that the Lake Wildwood treatment plant was at the end of its useful life. NID was pursuing this new pipeline from the E. George plant that was just spoken about. And that project will take 8 or 9 years. And even now it's being put on hold. So who knows how long that would be. In the meantime, NID was willing to risk the Lake Wildwood treatment plant failing. I looked at the engineering reports for that treatment plant in 2017, and that recommended immediate repairs. So I brought this to the attention of the board at several meetings, and I also wrote a letter to the board, and I was about ready to take it to the broader community. Anyway, I got $600,000 put into next year's budget to repair that plant. We cannot defer maintenance on the aging infrastructure. That's a big risk. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hull.
You know, I appreciate, I agree with the imperative to invest in our aged infrastructure. A lot of our infrastructure is vulnerable. It's in the high mountain country, and it sits in forests that are fire prone, wooden flumes hanging off the side of mountains. So we have a lot of vulnerable infrastructure that has to be addressed. And so I wholeheartedly support developing a comprehensive plan to help that includes a look at the full breadth of projects that need to be completed and where system vulnerabilities exist. I can't help but bring some reality to the conversation though. The financial situation in NID is grave. In their projected budget, they suggest using $22.5 million in property tax revenue that has historically been used to maintain our capital infrastructure, the infrastructure and capital program. And instead, they propose using that to fund debt. And that means that we have $22.5 million less over the next 5 years for capital. So I think that while the infrastructure is really important, it has to be a top priority. We have to do it in a fiscally responsible manner.
Thank you. Our next question will come from the media. The union, you're up.
I get an opportunity to speak, I believe.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Dr. Miller. And
I will take my time here. Yeah,
yes, you will.
These two are talking about the finances, and they just aren't talking actuals. The actuals are 2019 and up till now. Okay, I've been on this board 20 years. The grand jury got after us when it was me and Nancy Weber that we had 100 million in reserves, and we shouldn't have that many. We're not for profit, so we spent them down. 2008 came along and everything collapsed, and everybody just appreciates we handled all this. I've got so much experience with this budget. The professor likes to think it's a yes or no or a right or wrong answer. It's not, it's a process. So the actuals, there has never been a negative year while I've been on this board. Last year it was 83 million in and 80 out. So 3 million went into reserves. When we found ourselves at 2008 and the state took 10.4 million 2 years in a row from us, you all don't know. We were there working, we did it, we worked as a team with management, we brought us through unscathed, and we've been rebuilding our reserves. We're up to 97 million now. John did mention our refinance of debt just last month, which saves the district $350,000 a year on the 26 million that we just did to do one of our main arteries. We did the Banner Cascade or the Lower Cascade at 35 million some years ago, infrastructure, and then now the Combi Phase 1. This is what we've been doing, and we are in great shape. When we just refinanced, we were bumped up from AA to AA+. So I understand the naivety of these two talking about it, but I would trust in Standard & Poor's and Fitch and the lending houses that tell us what we're doing, where we're at and how we're doing. We're AA+. And in fact, it was a good move to redo that debt. And Professor Hull was talking about infrastructure. Exactly. We just did $26 million Combi Phase 1 and the siphon over the Bear River, which gets us down to our North Auburn treatment plant. So
Thank you.
district is strong and we're in great shape.
Okay. I'm sorry.
This year,
Dr.
nobody
Miller, I'm
budgeted
sorry,
for
that's
COVID.
time. I'm sorry, and that will not happen again. I'm still getting used to my virtual tracking system. That will not happen again. I apologize. So the union are up?
Hi, so can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. So there seems to be radically different views about the information that's contained in the recently released water planning projection reports that were released in August. Why do you think people are drawing such different conclusions about the data, and what's your conclusion?
Thank you. Mr. Norton, you will go first on this one.
Thank you. I've read the reports that you talked about, the demand and supply and hydrology reports. And although interesting, I find them lacking in some areas. The demand report, one of the main things is, it is showing a 1% per year growth in Nevada County in the Deer Creek watershed. I don't know where they got that number from, because 1% seems to be ridiculously large. And in fact, the previous 10 years, the growth in terms of water use in this area went down 15%. So I've got big questions about that. They do not tell us what their assumptions are or how they came up with that number, and that has to be revealed over the next few weeks and months. There were inconsistencies from going from the demand report to the supply report. So you ended up with a concluding demand over here in one report, and then you take it over here and it shows up in the supply report, it's 15% higher. No explanation for that to occur. The other part of it is, in the demand report, they took environmental flows into consideration and already in the demand. When it came over to the supply report, they took environmental flows out a second time. I think there's problems there. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Johansen.
Yeah, the biggest demand for our water are environmental demands, and these will be in-stream flows that will flow through our watersheds, and they're not recoverable. So we really lose that. And that could be anywhere from about 16,000 and some acre feet to 59,800 acre feet, depending on the year. With climate change and having flashy storms, atmospheric rivers, more drought, without the storage, we're not going to be capturing that water. That is going to also flow through. Much to the light of state of California, because they get the benefit of that water down in the Delta, or they can ship it to Southern California. So I trust HDR is a highly recognized and respected research firm and consulting firm, and they did a good job on this. And they do not paint a very good picture for us. We're not going to have the quality of life, the water that we used to have to irrigate our farms, our ranches, and we're not going to have the water for fire protection.
Thank you. Dr. Miller.
So again, I don't think I should have to explain to everybody climate change, but we've lost half of the snowpack. And as Rich Johansen just mentioned, we have additional environmental releases through the FERC relicensing, and that obliges us to another 50,000 depending on the year. But I'd like to go back to the finances, because these two are talking about the future. The whole process is collaborative and you work. You overestimate what your costs are going to be, and you conservatively estimate, they may not have actually done a real budget. I don't know. There was a lot of naivety and line item discussion, but in fact, we're in great shape. Those same forecasts show that we're going to be in positive next year. Again, COVID came through. We have 97 million. We have rebuilt our reserves at this time to 97 million. That's what they're to be used for, is a year like this. Last October, we did not budget for COVID. COVID came along, and all of those investments The bond market dropped out, so we lost all that income. And we've also made manipulations already. The 2020 isn't even in yet. We're still working on it. It's a process, to those of you who are interested in participating in this process. And moving forward, we've already taken it from like a $9 million deficit to a $5 million deficit. And that's what you do. It may be a negative year, first one in 20 years for me. It is what it is. COVID hit us. Nobody budgeted for it. We'll be fine, and we are fine. We are solid, AA+.
Thank you. Next question will come from the public, and I think that you guys have touched on this, but let's hear some specifics.
Mary Jane?
Yes.
My turn.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's the same thing. The same thing just happened. Ms. Hull, it is your turn to answer this very important question, and I apologize.
I'd like to first address the report. So this serves as a foundation for all the conclusions that we make about Centennial Dam. So it is absolutely essential that we and community members have confidence in the conclusion. Personally, I see a lot of the problems that John Norton mentions. Questions about accuracy of demand projections. It's really, when you look at other growth projections for Nevada County, you see that they are in direct contrast from what is presented in the demand study. In the supply study, it seems like they are double counting the environmental flows, which NID negotiated at the table with the FERC during the FERC process. I'm not a professor, I'm an MBA, and I know how to look at financial records. And I think the incumbent might try looking at the current budget proposal that I did look at, which shows that we're going to lose $6 million in the current fiscal year. So again, the documentation on the water supply and demand serves as the foundation for Centennial Dam, and we as a community and as NID board members have to have absolute certainty that it accurately reflects and is not overstating and creating a fear factor in our community where none needs to exist.
Thank you. Now we will go to our question from our public. So getting into a little bit more specifics of what you guys have touched on a bit, the cost of needed capital improvements, repair of deferred maintenance, and possible future expansion is much greater than NID's available financial resources. How would you prioritize NID's needs, and what are your highest priority capital and repair projects and their costs? And the first person to answer this will be Ms. Hull. Thank you.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that question again?
Sure. Would you like me to go from the beginning or just the last part of it?
The whole thing, please.
Okay, sure thing. The costs of needed capital improvements, repair of deferred maintenance, and possible future expansion is much greater than NID's available financial resources. How would you prioritize NID's needs? And what are your highest priority capital and repair projects and their costs?
Well, the general approach that I would take is that I would want to see a comprehensive analysis within the district for all capital projects that are required across all the program areas. Right now, NID has a draft capital improvement plan that spans 5 years, and that plan does not have any narrative with it. It just simply lists the project without any description of what the system vulnerabilities are or kind of how you would prioritize. And also, what are other vulnerabilities that might exist in the district that aren't identified? Also, NID funds maintenance through operations and maintenance. They fund ongoing efforts for improvement. So from my vantage point, you don't quite see how those things marry up. We've also become dependent in the recreation area for hydro providing financial support for infrastructure improvements. And I think we need to look at that to make sure that that's feasible in the future. In terms of priorities, I think we have a number of water treatment plants that are very old. They have been called out as being serious vulnerabilities for the district, and that's where I would put the priority.
Time's up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Miller?
Yeah, the BEP program, BEP project going down to Wildwood. John touched on it. It's important. The obstructionists have been trying to bog it down somehow. I don't really get that one. Nancy Weber got Cement Hill done. I got a lot of stuff down here. It's kind of like everybody gets a turn. These policies we create are to enable the expansion of infrastructure. So next up, like I say, we just did the combi. The two main arteries that come into us, into our district, our district, are the Banner Lower Cascade. We did that one, and then we did the combi. So now getting that down, and then hopefully eliminating the Smartsville treatment plant, which is an RCO thing. We're obliged to serve them down there, and it's just a small project. So that one's high on the list, only because it's all teed up, and it got derailed currently by folks. I'm not exactly sure why. It's a good project, and it would solve the problem that Mr. Norton would like to see solved. And so it is a high priority. They don't all have to be in my division. Again, the siphon that goes across the Bear River is actually taking the water to the North Auburn treatment plant, but also down to Placer County, where Director Peters people, and we could get water in the Auburn Ravine for the salmon down there. By the way, never any salmon in the Bear. It used to spill into the valley before Campfire West ever came around. But yeah, that's the top priority. Do the BEP. It's all teed up and ready to go. Up to Wildwood.
Thank you. Mr. Johansen.
Well, I'm going to agree with that 100%. I was here during the 49er fire fought it on Rough and Ready Road, saved 2 homes with a minimal amount of water from NID. But in Lake Wildwood, that treatment plant couldn't hold up to the firefighting needs and the demands. So we need to have that pipeline from Elizabeth George down to the Lake Wildwood water system that serves Rough and Ready, puts in fire hydrants. Rough and Ready gets hit by fires every few years. It's just a magnet. We need that. We need to protect Wildwood. And then that comes right back to Penn Valley. NID did talk about great work. They went in and redid all the fire hydrants. So they're now working, pressurized. They didn't have to do that, but they are. And this will add water to that system. When you take the Lake Wildwood water treatment plant offline, then you can upgrade it, increase the capacity, and then you have redundancy in your process. If you did it now, you would have to get eminent domain to expand the footprint of the Lake Wildwood water treatment plant. It's going to cost a lot more money than it would if you just run that pipeline in, get some security. It also creates a road that is a fire escape route for Lake Wildwood to the east. I remember seeing Pleasant Valley Road just jammed. People could not get out of Lake Wildwood during the 49er fire.
That's time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Norton.
Thank you very much. I'd like to, first of all, address the E. George to Lake Wildwood backbone pipeline that's been mentioned several times. I think that's a very good project, and it's something that in the long term is needed. And it is a long-term project. It takes years and years to build it in there. And it's a redundancy. It's a backup. It's not a replacement. Secondly, there was discussion about the need to increase capacity. There is no need to increase capacity at the Lake Wildwood treatment plant. There is adequate capacity right now. And in fact, NID has backed off on increasing the capacity of the treatment plant in our scheduling in 5 years repair of the treatment plant. The treatment plant can be repaired as is because it's a double plant that one half can be shut down at a time and the other can operate. Now let me get to the priorities, I think. First of all, I think we should look at the risk of failure, the probability of failure, and the risk, such as the Lake Wildwood treatment plant going down and going for 8 years before they repair it. That risk would put in jeopardy the drinking water for 7,000 people. That's got to be part of the prioritization of projects. Look at the risk to people and is it catastrophic? Thank you.
Thank you. Now that everyone has answered that question, we're going to go along to our media. KNCO, you're up for the next question.
All right, let's go ahead and do that. All right, good evening, candidates. Let's kind of switch mode a little bit here. What do you think NID's role should be or could be in moving into becoming an electricity provider, expanding assets that you have or relationships that you have? Where do you see NID falling in that role?
Thank you. Dr. Miller, you'll take this one first.
Well, to be clear, the PG&E thing that came out last year, I led the disagreement with the general manager. I thought he was chasing the latest shiny object. I understand everybody wanted us to take over the distribution systems, but it was a no-win. You couldn't get insurance, and it was a termite-infested rat trap. That's why, theoretically, PG&E was wanting to get rid of it, but I didn't think they did, and then Gavin Newsom let them off in June anyway, so we were right. And in that, I got Director Peter and Director Heck to vote with me to not spend the 150 on LAFCO. We were already at the table if the bankruptcy had taken that direction. So we are generators, and we are generators. We've been looking at doing a community JPA kind of thing, Joint Powers Authority, so we can distribute our own energy to our own people. But the beauty of Centennial, okay, we're making 23 million off the Rollins, where we did the FERC, and yes, the NGO's got a bite at the apple, and that's what the environment is, and that's just the cost of doing business. Staff tells me we could make 15 million a year off of the Centennial. So that is our core business. Water is our actual core business, providing consumptive use, but generation, not the distribution. So again, everybody wanted us to do that, and I thought it was a bad idea, and 3-2 vote, we voted that down for the PG&E takeover of distribution lines. High hazard, no insurance. It was not a good move. But the hydro is the golden goose, and during the recent rolling blackouts, okay, hydro supported the grid.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I do get excited about that.
It's okay. Thank you. Ms. Hull?
Well, I know that the power outages, particularly in Nevada County, in the Nevada City, Grass Valley area, are high impact activity, and that it is detrimental to businesses and homeowners. And, you know, we had our power shortage at our home, so I appreciate the difficulty. However, I do not support getting into this business of acquiring PG&E assets. I think it is high risk. I also think that PG&E is unlikely to have maintained their facilities, and so we would be inheriting not only the fire risk that was exposed to them in Paradise, but also the risk of, or the cost of having to resuscitate the infrastructure. I do want to say a word about hydro, because it actually isn't included in the current plan for Centennial as has been submitted to the state. So we can't count on any income coming from that Centennial Dam hydro at this point. Could be added in the future perhaps, but it's not part of the current application. The other thing I would add is that whenever you're looking at a budget, it's not just gross revenue that counts, it's net revenue. And when you look at Hydro's budget projection for the next 5 years, they're projected to lose over $22 million.
That's time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Norton?
Thank you. I like the concept of local control of power distribution systems. I think that would make a lot of sense. But it has, as already pointed out, extreme difficulties. For NID or even from other entities in Nevada County, the liability would be huge and you'd have to self-insure. That's a killer there. The other part is, I also agree that NID has enough of its own deferred maintenance to take care of, and it needs to take care of that first and not inherit a whole unknown part of deferred maintenance by PG&E. So I would say a bad idea for NID to get into that business. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Johansen.
Yeah, great question, Paul. Sexy idea. I love local control, but the risk is so much greater than the benefits. This could bury the whole district, and we just need, it wouldn't take much to do it. My brother has been past president of American Wind Energy Association, and he also has put in high voltage transmission lines to major wind projects. Not an easy thing to do, not an easy project to manage. So our business is water. Side business, the hydro makes money for us, so we can help keep our infrastructure up, so we can sometimes keep our water rates lower. Let's concentrate on that.
Thank you. Now that
Thank
everyone's
you,
had,
everybody.
yeah, thank you. So now that everyone's had a chance to answer the KNCO question, we'll move to a question from the public. I think you guys have touched on this in one manner or another, but let's dig into it a bit. Are you in favor or against the proposed Centennial Dam, and why? Please specify the benefits, costs, and impacts of the proposed project as you see them. Please state whether your position on Centennial has changed over time, and if so, why? Mr. Johansen, you'll take this one first.
No, thank you. So I've always been in favor of increasing storage. I do it here on my own property. And when I read the water supply analysis, that kind of cemented the fact, and our climate change, that cemented the fact to me that we need to increase storage for the whole community, the whole district. Centennial is a viable project. Geology-wise, hydrology-wise, if we do not put it in, someone else will. There are people who are looking at this big time, and will just snap it up. So if we want to keep our water, I think we're committed. Now, the two downfalls. One, can we afford it? It may be we can. I think I like the $500 million price tag, especially in these times with the low interest rates. Also, the environmental impacts. Can they be mitigated? Can we negotiate something that works like a win-win for the tribes, so that everybody benefits in the community? But if we don't increase our water supply, we're going to see tremendous shortages on people who are not part of the drought contingency plan. And I'm sorry, that includes Lake Wildwood, golf courses, and lakes.
Thank you. Mr. Norton.
Thank you. I cannot support the Centennial Dam that's been promoted without us knowing the essential facts. The project is roughly $1 billion proposition to be funded by the ratepayers without really fully understanding the costs, benefits, and alternatives. For the past several years, NID has been spending income and has depleted its reserves to balance the budget. The lack of adequate reserves puts the district and us, the water users, at risk. And it was previously talked about $97 million in reserves. There's only about $4 million in discretionary reserves that can be used for an emergency situation. But despite this precarious financial condition, NID has spent millions of dollars on property acquisition and consulting contracts in support of the dam. What would the impacts of the dam be on recreation, the environment, the Native American cultural sites? How will NID pay for it? To build this dam, NID would have to borrow $500 million or more. the interest and principal payments would double the average ratepayer's bill. How would they support that? And right now, members of the agricultural community are coming to NID saying they can't pay the existing rates and they want a subsidy. This project is a budget buster. No thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Hull.
Okay, well, in my mind, the issue that we're trying to grapple with is one that we as a community would all agree with, which is how do we ensure that we have affordable and reliable water for the long term for NID, or excuse me, for the customers of Nevada and Placer counties. And, you know, I think that a dam is one option for making that happen. This is a singular solution that NID has followed, and they have not looked at other options that might exist to provide this water foundation. They also haven't done an adequate analysis of supply and demand. That has just recently come out, but before even doing that, they spent $12 million buying property around the dam site. We also don't have state approval for the project. So I'm really hard pressed to understand why we had to spend $12 million, especially when our fiscal house is in shambles right now. There's a lot of statements about how we are going to lose our water rights if we don't act just right now. And you know what? The fact is that our water rights there in the Bear River have existed since the early 1900s. This site is not your prime building site for a dam. Otherwise, it would have already been built.
That's time. Thank you. Dr. Miller.
Yeah, any number of things to talk about, the last of which right there with MBA Hull, who filed protest against NID's water rights. I have the letter from the State Department of Water Resources that shows in January 2017 when her husband, so it's funny to hear her say our rights are important because she filed protest against them, which does forfeit them to the state, which would take it to the tunnels and on the way. John Norton was wrong when he just contradicted MBA Hull when she earlier had said, and correctly, that we're using our tax dollars, which are capital, to pay for maintenance and projects. You just said ratepayers. It's not the ratepayers. Right now, the project, call it $1 billion, call it $500 million, call it $750 million. With the interest rates dropping from, it was basically 4%. They're down below 2 right now. So the project just got cut in half is the reason to execute it now. If we are with our hands up waiting for both sides of Congress who are saying they're going to come out with infrastructure, then we're in position to maybe get those monies. But the reality is the interest rates are low. Now, what happens is the good things. If we caught the rain, there was an article on Ubinet about the atmospheric rivers, which I totally agree with. It comes as rain now. We catch it as rain, it takes pressure off the top. Caleb, who used to run Circle, was noticeably silent back in the day. And I think because he saw that. If we catch the rain and take pressure off the top, more water goes to the South Yuba. Fire, all sorts of benefits. I'll come back. My time's up.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So our next question will be from KVMR. KVMR, you are up.
Thank you. Well, my question is, if NID is in such good financial shape as some of you have described, why are we in the middle of a 17% interest in water rates to users? And where is the up to $1 billion expenses to build the Centennial Dam? How much of that is going to come from rate payers? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Norton?
I might answer what's going to come from the ratepayers first. There was a little bit of discussion that possibly that would be paid for by property taxes or some other maybe source from hydroelectric. Well, the truth of the matter is water operations and the whole water department is funded not only by ratepayers, but by hydroelectric and by property tax. So if you take that property tax or hydro and you say, I'm going to use it to build a dam, you don't have enough money in water operations anymore, and you're going to have to raise the rates to make it up. So it's a zero-sum game. I don't know what's going on here. Could you ask the first part of the question again, please? Okay.
Mute. We're already in the midst of a 17% interest in rates, and how much of basically what kind of rate increases are we going to be looking at if indeed the ratepayers have to pay a good portion of the cost of the Centennial Dam?
Okay. Well, let's look at what's happening right now. Next year, there's a 5.72% increase. And if you look at the 2021 budget, all non-essential capital projects had been deferred. And a lot of maintenance has been deferred. As a matter of fact, the water operations manager said this budget is unsustainable. So they're going to bare bones budget to get through 2021. All things are not great there. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Johansen.
Can Paul repeat that question, please?
Okay.
Hi, Paul.
As I understand it, we're in the midst of a 17% increase in rates, I think scattered out over 3 or 4 years as of right now. The Centennial Dam may cost up to $1 billion. How much of that is going to be charged back to ratepayers that are current users of NID services?
So most of this will be financed through property taxes, other things. You can also water marketing. Water on the open market in California is very expensive. I farmed through 2 droughts, and I had to buy water on the open market, keep my trees open, or keep them alive. It generates a lot of water. So even if you just built a dam and marketed the water, you're going to pay for the dam. I'm not a proponent of that. I like to keep the water to our community and for our benefits. But let's ask the other question. If you don't have water, sufficient water for our customers, and they can't grow crops, or they can't do landscaping, or they, or large golf courses or dry up, or the lake that like Lake Wildwood buys 900 acre feet, and it's a 4,000 acre foot lake. What if you don't get that water? What happens to the land values around Lake Wildwood? And they go down, and all our land values. And then what happens to our fire protection? And what happens to the fact can we get fire insurance? So not having the water is going to be a lot more expensive than paying for this dam.
Thank you. Dr. Miller. Dr. Miller, you're on mute. There you go.
There we go. Sorry about that. So did I get my time back?
Yes.
Okay.
You got it.
Right on. So, yeah, John keeps perseverating on the rates. And as we just were talking about with the 26 million for the Combi Phase 1, we just refinanced that debt. It's like buying a house. You don't drop $1 million on a house, you get a mortgage. We work in 50-year bonds. They have now dropped to less than 2%. So the project has come in half. Whatever the number you want to put on it, it has dropped in half. So, and that's how we do that. And then that's why it's the property taxes, just like we just did with the Combi, with the 26 million, you're paying your debt service. as though that's a bad thing. That's a good thing. Again, we are AA. We've never been below AA, and we have just gone back up to AA plus. So everybody's looking at I think the lending institutions have a bit more authority in this than the prospective new board members. Again, it's kind of like going with HDR. They're professional. I have to rely on their discussions. But it's basically the 50-year bonds is how you do it. And then, yes, hydro is a part of it. I asked it in an open session when ACON was making their presentation, raised my hand. I said, is this suitable for hydro? They said, every dam is. We as a district have been going through Loma Rica. If there's a 100-foot drop, we do micro hydro because it is real and it is good. And that's, the future is what you got to work on. That's exactly the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hull.
Well, there's a lot here. So first of all, NID as a district has never completed a financial analysis of how the district and it's going to fund this project and what the impact is to rates, okay? We don't have that. If they've done it, it's never been shared with the public. So one can only kind of surmise what the implication is. The incumbent likes to talk about that we'll get 2% interest or whatever it is, but the fact of the matter is we're not ready to build this project right now. We don't have a permit from the state. We have more than 15 different organizations around the greater, Nevada County, Placer County, Sacramento, all who have filed protests against our permit. So just think, how long does it take to mediate and resolve disputes with 15 different parties? So, the fact that the interest rates may be low now, what about 5 years from now? So, I think that, I want to go back to a point John made. He talked about how hydro has supported and underwritten the cost of water going forward. With the FERC license and the implications of transition and investment required for that license to make our hydro operation, the financial picture changes dramatically.
Thank you. So we're getting up on 7:10 here, and we have time for one more question. Now that everyone's answered that question from KVMR, I'm wondering if you'd like to take the final question today.
Oh, if I must. Okay. So we talked a lot about finance. We talked a lot about climate change. Let's continue in it. Recently, outgoing board member Nick Wilcox said in an op-ed that in a 5-year drought sequence, which NID is required by state law to plan for, NID is short a minimum of 51,000 acre-feet, even taking into account a 50% reduction in delivery. While that might be an argument for Centennial, I would like to hear from you what NID would do, because that would require for Nevada County to update the general plan. If you don't have the water, it's a huge undertaking to update the county's general plan. And what would you, as a board member, how would you instruct NID to either collaborate or not? I'd like to hear thoughts on that.
Thank you. Ms. Hull, you're up first on this one.
Well, I think first of all, you have to go back to the premises in the HDR study about growth in demand. And in fact, that does the information presented there is not substantiated by our historical or projected growth in Nevada County consistent with the general plan. So I think one of the things that, going back to the broader question though, of how do we look at water supply from a broader perspective, one of the things we can do is certainly invest more in canal technology and canal lining systems. So canal technology allows us to use, and the lining allows us to maintain more of the water that we have already available to us. I also think that there are opportunities to invest more heavily in our forest restoration and meadow restoration efforts. NID is doing good work in this area, but if you look at what sister water agencies are doing, you see that there's tremendously more investment being made in these areas, and they are funded through public and private partnerships that help to offset costs dramatically. And this work results in up to 10% more water in our watershed.
That's time. Thank you. Dr. Miller.
Well, on that last note, of our 250,000 acre watershed, we only own 7,000. So it's not our forest, it's the BLM and SPI. We are doing it at Scotts Flat. So, and we've already done the meadow restoration up top at Jackson Meadows. We are doing these things, and that yielded almost 3,000 acre feet, but a drop in the bucket. The question was from Pasquale, what would we do if we didn't have the reservoir, I believe? Is that correct?
My question was, if, as you're required by state law, you would be short 51,000 acre feet of water,
Yes.
according to Nick.
Right.
That would trigger for Nevada County a problem with their general plan. So what would NID's position be?
Right. So we are held as an agency to deliver water. Everybody always argues about Lincoln. We're a water agency. We're heavily regulated. What we would have to do is eliminate the golf courses, and ag would probably be pushed out of the, again, we do nothing, we're in a bad way. It is cost, it is expensive, I get it, but it is a very excellent solution. But we would be forced to shut down the golf courses, and maybe ag has to go away, is what, if we didn't have it. I think that was the question.
Thank you.
Not quite, but okay.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Well, it's time.
Something about the planning.
Thank you. Mr. Johansen.
Yeah, Pasquale, thanks for that question, because that's the $64,000 question. Our general plan, not only because of the water supply analysis, forecast, but also we rely on fractured rock. We do not have a very definable aquifer underneath us. The only one that really works is the one out by Lincoln. So what you can't measure, you can't manage. And so at the Planning Commission, I have been talking this up. Hey guys, we need to look at this from a planning perspective and then make adjustments under our update, our general plan. Because what we allow now, even though we're not part of Sigma, that requirement from the state, we rely solely on surface water. And that surface water is provided by NID in this part of our county. So that has to be looked at. What they also put in there was that we could buy water from PG&E every year. And in some of those major droughts, that will not be possible. So I don't think that 51,000 acre foot deficit is wrong at all. And it may even err on the low side.
Thank you. Mr. Norton.
Thank you. As far as the 5-year drought sequence in the HDR report, you have to look at what they did there. That is a 2070 projection, and then they cherry-picked each year as the worst drought year on record and put it in there back-to-back over 5-year period. A very improbable scenario. Secondly, going back once again, if the average year, we had more than enough water. It was only under this bizarre extreme drought condition that they could show a deficit. I think we need to carefully look at these HDR reports, carefully look at the growth patterns in Nevada and Placer County. And I think we're going to find we have more than enough water. In addition, as was mentioned before, we can produce more water by doing meadow restoration, removing sediment from Rawlins, for instance, decreasing the amount of sediment coming down the rivers into Rawlins and other reservoirs, and looking at conservation. I think there are other avenues to take. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rich said we don't participate in Sigma. That we actually do. We pay $50,000 a year to be part of it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I said last time that this would be our last question. However, we have been given permission to extend by one more question. So here it is. This is coming from the public. I have been an NID customer for 25 years and have experienced continuous rate increases over that time. What is your position on future rate increases, and how does it differ from your opponent's position? The person taking this first will be Dr. Miller.
So I don't know my opponent's position. I can tell you, though, that I have consistently been a conservative voice on the rate increases. To point, we're in this 3-year thing right now, 5.75 for 3 years. That was my motion, seconded by Director Peters, and carried on a 3-2 vote, again with Ricky Heck and Laura Peters. The general manager was looking for a 45%, and he was overreached. And I've always been. Now, in the prior 5-year thing, it was 6% per year, and we had promised everyone that we would look at it. So I'm the one raising my hand at the table, and it was a 4-1 against me when I said, can't we go, try to nail it down. This year, it's a little closed session-ish, but with our employees and COVID, all this stuff went on, and their contract came up. I advocated and brought us back to 0%. It's just one of those years. I love the employees. They're excellent people, but sometimes you got to tell the children that it's not the year to do something. And so I was advocating 0%. And I even brought, Ricky said to me later, thank you for bringing me back towards that, because we kind of started to drift away. I think it's going to want, again, closed session, I can't, but I'm that guy. I've been advocating. And yeah, so the one guy said it's 17%. Yeah, that's 5.75 over 3 years. And we have a package coming up next year. So we get the opportunity to address it. If we had hydro coming from Centennial, we could help insulate those rates, just like we do now with the Rollins.
Thank you.
Yes,
Ms.
ma'am.
Hull.
Oops, sorry. My empathy is with the customer who identified this continuous rate increase that they are experiencing year after year. I think the challenge is that right now, I don't care what the incumbent says. We have serious financial issues, and they aren't going away by pushing them off and pretending they don't exist. When we're using property taxes for paying debt service instead of making capital improvements, when we show this tremendous drop in hydro's contribution to the water fund, these are all serious problems. So I think what we really have to do is look carefully inside NID to find ways to address the systemic issues that are driving these continual rate increases. And, there's a lot of things we can do. Where do we have unnecessary bureaucracy? Where do we need to improve contracting processes to make them more efficient and get the lowest cost bid possible? Where can we pull in work so that our 212 employees stay fully occupied and we avoid additional cost from contracting out? So there's lots we can do to mitigate cost, and I think that has to be a top priority for the board.
Thank you.
Systemic issues.
Thank you. Mr. Norton.
I sympathize with that ratepayer because NID has been on the track of endless rate increases over the years. They are right now looking at 5.72% next year, and then 7% per year thereafter for 39%. Yes, 39% increase over the 5-year period. That's without Centennial Dam. Right now, we have the agricultural community saying, right now, we don't have the money to pay the rates now, not the 39% later. We need a subsidy now. We have to get rates under control now. The first thing we need to do is really get the right general manager in there that has strong fiscal management capability and give that person all the support they can and tell them that we need to get the rates under control. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Johansen.
Yeah, I believe in fiscal management, good fiscal management, keeping the costs down. I have farmed through 2 major California droughts. The last one, my water rates went up 1,100% in 2014. In 2015, they went up 1,250%. I was kind of cut. The fact that this was the valley, I was growing a higher value crop, allowed me to be able to pay that to keep the trees alive. But I had to take out 2,000 trees just because I didn't have enough water for them. California's a population of 40 million people, and we have an infrastructure for 18 million. Water is the most precious resource in California. And things in California, because of environmental concerns, with new regulations from John, you work down there, you understand that Sacramento really raises our costs big time. And looking as a farmer, I'm just trying to figure out how to survive from year to year right now. Part of it's water rates, but not that much. More of it is more regulatory and labor restrictions and things like that. So all I'm going to say is, yeah, I don't want to raise water rates. Be very difficult to do it, but in California, water is getting to be very expensive.
Thank you. It's time for closing statements. You'll have 3 minutes apiece, done in reverse order from opening statements. To begin, we'll hear closing statements from John Norton, running for Division 5. You have 3 minutes, Mr. Norton.
Thank you very much. I just want to reiterate that I have 28 years experience in water resource management with the State Water Board. I have worked on several large projects and been very successful. I had managed the Los Angeles Regional Board, and I managed the San Diego Regional Board. I have a good background, and since I retired, I've continued to work with in watershed protection with Sierra Streams, the Lake Committee, and with the Nevada County Sanitation Agency. I just want to spend a moment giving everybody a vision of what I see for the future NID. I see a new NID. I see an NID that is open and transparent to its board and to the public. I see an NID that engages the community in their projects and their plans ahead of time. I see an NID that restrains rate increases unless the community desires a higher level of service. I see an NID that has adequate reserves ready for an emergency. I see an NID that works with the agricultural community to conserve water and sustain our farms and ranches. And I see an NID that partners with the U.S. Forest Service, other water agencies, and NGOs to protect our upper watershed from fire danger, sediment, discharge, etc., and meadow restoration. I need your vote to make this vision possible. Together we will see a new NID. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Now we'll hear closing statements from Division 5 candidate, Rich Johansen. Mr. Johansen, you have 3 minutes.
Well, thanks, Mary Jane. So the problem to me is still the water supply. We need to protect our water rights. We need to provide a dependable supply of water to all our customers. We need to do that at a reasonable price. We need to take care of the watershed at the same time. My strength is in conservation. I have designed and installed 2 of the most efficient irrigation systems there are. I'm also very strong in marketing and figuring out higher value crops for Nevada County, and also working towards a more local supplied food source. Food security is it's huge to me. Fire safety is huge. We can't do that without water. We cannot do that without irrigated pasture. I'm not sure how we're going to figure that one out, because the livestock guys, the ranchers, are really getting hit on both sides. Costs are going up, and their price is not going up. It doesn't keep track. So I think we need to have more storage. I think the Rough and Ready Lake Wildwood Penn Valley needs to have more dependable supply of water. Lake Wildwood Water Treatment Plant did run out of water during the 49er fire. And if it went out, I would want that, we had a fire through there. We've had a couple since then. I'd want that redundant supply coming in from Elizabeth George that wouldn't be affected by fire. So I think that I'm going to say the person is kind of judged by some of the people he hangs out with. And so people that are endorsing me are the former supervisor Hank West and current supervisor Sue Hook, Farm Bureau, Nevada County Farm Bureau, the Nevada County Contract Association. There's other people have, kicked in and donated to my campaign. I'm honored that they have, because they know that I will deliver. I'll deliver the water. I will be transparent. I will be accessible, and I will always do what is best for the district. I will not be beholden to any special interest, and I just hope that you see it my way, and I thank you for your support.
Thank you. Now we'll hear closing statements from Dr. Scott Miller, running for Division 3. Dr. Miller, you have 3 minutes.
Yes, ma'am. So again, the disparaging remarks about NID's finances are just wrong. The actuals are the actuals. We haven't lost money in all these years and been through the 2008 fiasco when they stole our money at the state level. John just said that reserves are for emergencies. Well, if this year with COVID isn't an emergency and we're using our reserves, we're in that position because we are strong. But there's more important things afoot because everything we're talking about is forecast and whatnot. I talk to people in the field, right, out here stumping and campaigning, and not an insignificant number of them, they think that the reservoir is going to send the water to LA. And I want to dispel that. It's exactly the opposite. It's use it or lose it with our water rights. Again, the tunnels is what's going to send it to LA. We should all know that. By keeping it here, we're preserving our water rights. The reality is we're a water utility. So the strategy of my opponent and the Foothill Water Network to protest our water rights, 2 of those 14 she mentioned, it cuts at the heart of NID. I don't understand how you can be a director and then try to forfeit our water rights, literally. So vote for me and keep the water local and perfect our water rights by using them. I will work to complete the Centennial Reservoir. The whole thing with capital projects is debt. You guys keep confusing that and using it against the rates. That's what the property tax are designated for, capital projects. Our debt is on the capital projects. So again, there's a little bit of nonsensicality going on with the bias against the trying to make it hysterical and that NID is in trouble. We're not. We're strong. We've been managed excellently. COVID hit us. We're surviving that. We'll be strong next year again. So again, I appreciate the support I've had in the past, and I am looking to ask for your vote on November 3rd. Thank you for all the support I've had in the past. More time?
Yeah, you got 40 more seconds.
Well, let me pick a subject here. Yeah, No, I hope I don't have to convince everybody about climate change. You know, you're going to get into the particularities of the technical memorandums for HDR. Really, brutal summers, mild winters. Is anybody arguing that we're losing our snowpack? Come on, people. If we do nothing, we're going down the wrong rabbit hole. It is a cost. We do have to invest in our own future, our grandchildren's future. 50 years of water security with that reservoir. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we hear closing statements from Karen Hull, running for Division 3. Ms. Hull, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. You know, I think you have to ask the question, if our water rights have been in jeopardy, then why in the world hasn't someone built the dam long ago? If they can just be taken by anybody, anywhere, then by gosh, I think we would already have a dam where this project is proposed. You know, but I can't help but look at the challenges facing NID in relativity to about 100 years ago when the leaders of Nevada County were talking about the challenge of their generation, which was how to secure affordable and reliable water for residents of Nevada County. And they had a bold vision. They demonstrated leadership and hard work, and they built the second largest water district in the state of California, and that's NID. The challenge of water management today is just as daunting. In addition to our very serious financial challenges, which, by the way, all you have to do is look at the budget projection that just was released, and our projected loss for this year is $6 million. We have to, in addition to dealing with the financial challenges, we have increasing frequency and severity of drought. Catastrophic wildfires threaten the health of our watershed and the infrastructure like wooden flumes that hang on mountain hillsides. There's increased environmental awareness and the need to support growth in our communities. Today, we need the same level of vision and creative thinking as the founders of NID. Tweaks around the edges and operating in the same old ways won't work. That's what got us where we are, is from the incumbent. I leave my mind open about the viability of a dam for NID, but I have learned through my conversations with leadership of neighboring water agencies that there are a lot of viable alternatives to maximizing our water supply to meet growing demand. You know, unlike what Mr. Miller had to say, our neighboring water agencies are investing in watershed, forest health, and meadow restoration way beyond the land they own, because it's the watershed that creates our water storage, not just the land we own. And research has shown that we can save up to 10% per year while reducing risk to our watershed, our mountain infrastructure, and our communities. And these projects are supported with funding from the state, federal, and private sector. Another opportunity is for greater partnerships with regional water agencies so that together we can optimize water storage across.
That's time.
Thank you for your vote, and see me at Karen Hull, the number 4, NID.com. Thanks for your time.
Thank you to the candidates for participating in this evening's forum. Thanks also to UBNet, the Union, KVMR, KNCO, and those who submitted questions. For the latest information on the upcoming election, stay tuned to our local media outlets and visit us online at www.lwvwnc.org. Have a great night, everyone.
You too. Thank you.
Mary Jane. Thank you to all the candidates. Best of luck to you. Good night, everybody.
Thank you, Jen. Mary Jane.
Great job, everyone.
Right on. Good job.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Good job.
Yeah, sorry about that hiccup initially.
It's okay.
Shut her down, right?
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Best of luck to everybody, and we'll see you later.
All right, bye. Thanks, Jan. Great forum.
No.
What?
Oh, I think I have to end the meeting. Okay.
Okay, I'll leave.
Bye.